Henry Joseph Nasiff Jr., or Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf as he was known by his fans, was a beloved and popular recurring guest on The Howard Stern Show, and the TV show that accompanied it airing on the E! Channel. He was part of the show's Wack Pack, the name given to a handful of personalities consistently featured throughout the history of the popular radio show. Hank was a staple of The Howard Stern Show for the better part of 5 years. His career got its start in August of 1996 when he essentially barged his way into Stern's studio at K-Rock in New York City. He had a lot of guts, and with a little extra help from some good old-fashioned liquid courage, he managed to make himself a star, albeit an unlikely one. Measuring in at 4 feet 1 inch tall and weighing just 95 pounds, Hank's huge personality overshadowed his relatively small build. But what he lacked in size, he made up for by being belligerent, angry, and sensational. But deep down below that gruff and broody public persona, Hank had a good soul. He made a tremendous impact on virtually everyone he came across. So let's honor this angry, short-statured legend by taking a look at his life story and accomplishments. Hank's early life. Henry Nasiff Jr. was born April 20th, 1962, in Fall River, Massachusetts. A few weeks after he was born, he received the diagnosis of achondroplasia dwarfism. His mom, Claudette, used to tell him that when he was a child, despite his disability, he could do anything he set his mind to. So Hank decided he wanted to learn to ride a bike and play Little League. He didn't care what the other kids said about him. He just wanted to do what made him happy. At age 12, Hank underwent an operation to straighten out his legs. While his doctor said he'd probably need more surgery eventually, Hank decided he didn't want to have any further procedures done. Before finding fame on The Howard Stern Show, Hank had a bit part in a production of Finnegan's Wake at a Boston dinner theater. He would pop out of a beer keg at the end of each performance. While he only had 4 lines, he was paid $50 a performance. The job lasted for 2 years. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. And stick around to find out how Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf died. Meeting Howard Stern. Hank first met Howard August 19, 1996, after he and a friend from the Boston Dinner Theater drove to New York for a night out on the town. After an evening of heavy drinking, Hank decided to camp out in front of K-Rock Studios in Manhattan at 5:30 in the morning. He was determined to get on the air. Gary Delabate, Stern's producer, was the first to encounter Hank, who was clearly drunk at the time. Hank aggressively demanded he be permitted to meet Stern. Gary went inside and told Howard he had just come across a drunken dwarf wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a lei with a vodka bottle in one hand. Howard told Gary to bring him in immediately. Hank's first appearance included a reading of a series of one-sentence insults directed towards various groups of people and ethnicities that he had written on a piece of paper the evening before. Hank insisted from his first on-air conversation with Howard that he be called a dwarf and not a midget, and he would quickly correct anyone who slipped up. He viewed it as an issue of respect. Hank's character name came pretty much spontaneously when Howard said something to the effect of always having wanted to have an angry, drunken dwarf on his program. For the 5 years he was a recurring guest, Hank was a fan favorite. He was bold and never shied away from expressing himself. As far as being belligerent, he only really got that way when he was really drunk, or when people would heckle him. Behind his clearly exaggerated public persona, Hank had what some might call an underlying good nature, and most fans seemed to be aware of that side of his. During his first few years on Howard's show, he'd take the bus from Boston to New York every month as soon as he got his disability check. Hank denied being paid for his appearances on the show, but he did say sometimes they'd throw him a little money under the table. He said he didn't have much need for money because wherever he went, people basically would fight to buy him a drink. The most beautiful person in the world. Hank received an incredible amount of media attention in 1998 when he won a People magazine online poll asking the public to vote for the most beautiful person in the world. The poll allowed the public to write in a candidate if they wanted to, and they definitely didn't anticipate Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf to receive 230,000 votes. He beat out quite a few celebrities by a lot. Second place was for another write-in candidate, wrestler Ric Flair, and third place went to Leonardo DiCaprio. The film Titanic had just been released, so the editors of the magazine naturally assumed that the film's star would take in the most votes. The suggestion to write in votes for Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf started on a Howard Stern fan webpage before it got popularized on various message boards. Eventually, even Howard himself mentioned it on the air a couple times. Voting lasted a week, and at its peak, the votes for Hank were coming in at a mind-blowing rate of 50 a minute. When the poll was complete, the executive editor of People wasn't exactly thrilled about the outcome. In fact, he called it stupid. When People's 50 Most Beautiful People issue was finally released, DiCaprio appeared on the cover. The magazine did, however, photograph Hank and mentioned him on their website along the other runner-ups. A vote for Hank was essentially a protest vote against an industry that thinks they have the power to tell us what to eat, what to watch, what to listen to, and who's attractive enough to date. Others saw the votes for Hank as a recognition of his inner beauty, but Hank never felt like the word beautiful applied to him. Hank's alcoholism, death, and aftermath. While Hank's alcoholism was all a part of his shtick, it was also slowly killing him. He would, from time to time, try to cut back, but then he would often experience seizures. In a documentary detailing his life, his mother revealed his liver was severely damaged by his drinking, and she didn't know how long he had to live. Hank had been to rehab on several occasions and was mandated by the court to enter detox, but nothing seemed to stick. He was even kicked out of an AA meeting once for cracking open a bottle of Mad Dog 2020 moments after the meeting started. Howard Stern also tried to get him help. Several of his staffers even tried to get him into some kind of program, but he always refused. His first taste of alcohol was given to him by his grandfather when he was 7 or 8. He experienced a great deal of trauma as a child. He explained on Howard's show he'd been sexually abused by someone when he was 7. After the incident, he was left with a great deal of anger. In his teenage years, he started using alcohol to self-medicate. By the time he was 14, he admitted to already having built up quite a tolerance. Hank passed away sometime in the afternoon of September 4th, 2001. He died in his sleep at the home he shared with his parents in Massachusetts. He was 39 years old. According to his death certificate, it was caused by a combination of factors, including a seizure disorder, his alcoholism, and chondrodystrophy. Howard Stern devoted the majority of his show the following day to honoring Hank's memory. Claudette, Hank's mom, called in on September 10th, 2001 to thank everyone who attended his funeral. She also let Hank's fans know he was buried with a can of beer and a bottle of Jack Daniels in his casket. Oddly enough, on the morning of September 11th, 2001, Howard Stern was discussing with an E! Channel executive about the prospect of producing an True Hollywood story about Hank when the first plane crashed into the World Trade Center. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you a fan of Howard Stern and his cast of characters? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.